Welcome to the Residential Movement. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Maciejewski, a house call dentist with a lot of passion for dental home care. I'm here to encourage, equip, and empower dentists like you to begin offering dental services at the residences of patients who are best served at home. Listen in as we talk dentistry, business, ethics, mindset, and more, and learn how you can become a part of the residential movement. One of my first 3 dental house calls was a denture adjustment for an elderly woman. It took me all of 5 minutes to adjust the denture. She was raving about how relieved she felt. I felt great. Then she said, "So I owe the hospital thousands. Now what do I owe you?" My heart sank into my stomach. All of a sudden, I felt like a burden, and I charged her nothing. I told her to just take my business card and tell all of her friends about me. Guys, this woman was pushing 100 years old, and she was homebound. She told me herself that most of her friends were no longer with us. She was a wonderful lady, but probably not the best source of word-of-mouth marketing, right? So, after helping this woman, I left her home with less material than I arrived with dirty instruments, feeling guilty, and with no cash in hand. I told myself, well, it was only a short appointment, as if that justified the free dental house call. That wasn't even the final time something like this happened. The truth is, I didn't charge my first 3 patients. Yep, I drove to their residences, did dental work in their homes, and couldn't bring myself to charge them a single penny. This isn't because I was so charitable. It isn't because I had an excess of time or money. It's because I felt guilty. This sounds super embarrassing now, but depending on your background, you might understand how I was feeling at the time. I felt like charging was arrogant or uncomfortable. Still, I knew that to sustain this business, I was going to have to make some changes. I had to experience a major mindset shift. Whenever I'm stuck in a predicament like this, I go back to my basic beliefs and values. So I believe in being a good steward of the resources I've been given. I had been given this idea from my dental home care service, Acama Dental. Not only the idea, but the ability to acquire supplies and materials, and the opportunity to serve patients. I had been given a lot, and I could not let all of it go to waste. I reminded myself that if Acama Dental went out of business, the patients in my community who needed dental care at home just would go without it. That was not an option I could live with. I began to realize that conducting a healthy business wasn't about me. Healthy business practices ensured that my community would have access to residential dental care for years to come. In a nutshell, here's the elementary business lesson that I finally learned and that I want you to know from the beginning. Profit is not optional. If you truly believe that the world needs your dental home care services, you need to make sure that your business is healthy and sustainable. If you want your business to serve people indefinitely, you must be a good steward of your resources. In order to do this, you must understand and honor the value of your resources, like your time and your skills. Ultimately, this means charging what you're worth. If you're still struggling with understanding the value of dental home care, stay with me for a bit. You know that home care dental practices run completely differently than traditional dental practices. If not, check out episode 2 for a full rundown on the differences between the 2 models. One of the most obvious logistical differences is the timing of patient visits. Depending on the procedure and cooperation level of the patient, dental house calls can take anywhere between 45 minutes and 2 hours. Now, when I work in public health, in 2 hours, I see 4 or 5 of my own scheduled patients, plus do at least 2 hygiene exams. Maybe in your office, you see even more patients in 2 hours. When the business model is based on production, it's important to jam-pack every minute. Obviously, a dental house call is less efficient, but the service doesn't exist to be efficient. It exists to meet a need. So one justification for the rate of dental home care is the opportunity cost alone. Still need convincing? Let's keep going. So let's say you're popping over to a patient's house for a denture adjustment. You spend a little time setting up there and catching up with the patient and his family. You review his medical history, pop in the denture with some PIP, whip out the articulating paper, make a little adjustment here and there, review care instructions, clean up, and head out. You might be in and out in about 45 minutes or less, short and sweet. That patient and their family just had a wonderful, valuable interaction with you. But remember, that 45-minute interaction with the patient was actually only a fraction of the amount of time you spent on that appointment. Before that visit, you packed your suitcase, picked up the case from the lab, and drove to that person's house. Afterward, you drove back home, you wrote notes, and you sterilized instruments. Furthermore, don't forget about all of the years it took you to acquire skills to be able to do that appointment in 45 minutes. So house call dentists need to charge not only for the specific procedure, but the total amount of time spent preparing for that appointment. I hope you're understanding the value of dental home care. I'm grateful that I was able to start seeing things from a different perspective. I finally began embracing healthy business practices. It's made Akama Dental secure and strong. I should mention that at this time, dental insurance doesn't cover house calls and reimbursements for procedures are not high enough to sustain this business model. In my opinion, dental home care services have to be fee-for-service. You can submit a claim for the patient to be reimbursed, but that's got to be the end of the relationship between insurance companies and your residential dental service. If you have a different opinion, reach out to me at residentialmovement.com or at residentialmovement on Instagram. Let me know what you think. So knowing the rates for dental home care and knowing that insurance coverage wasn't a factor, I understood that a lot of people cannot readily afford dental home care services. I couldn't just turn a blind eye to patients who are economically disadvantaged. Dental care is a necessity after all. People with economic disadvantages who are homebound should absolutely be able to access care. Dentists absolutely need to make a living doing dental house calls. These are simple concepts, but they're not so easy to get to work together. I decided to create the Home Smile Care Foundation to close the gap between house call dentists and economically disadvantaged patients. Full disclosure, we're still in the founding and fundraising phase. We're hoping to be up and operating in early 2023. The Home Smile Care Foundation is a nonprofit organization that will give funding to patients who truly need and cannot afford at-home dental care. If you want to support the patients that the residential movement is aiming to serve, consider contributing to the Home Care Smile Foundation at homecaresmilefoundation.org. All in all, I hope that you recognize the value of your services and know that you have permission, or actually an obligation, to charge what you need to charge in order to live your life and offer your valuable services. Patients who struggle for access need to know that they have the option of the Home Smile Care Foundation. Thanks to your effort and your support, sooner rather than later, dental home care will be normal, not novel or niche. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Residential Movement. I appreciate you. That's a wrap on this episode of the Residential Movement. If you liked what you heard today, subscribe to stay updated and leave me a review. If you know someone who could benefit from this info, please share this with them. All of these actions help fuel the residential movement. Thanks again for listening, Doc. Keep up the good work.